All right, today we are diving into one of the most talked about and honestly most confusing topics in finance right now, cryptocurrency. Is it really the future of money, or is it just a whole lot of hype? To figure that out, we've got to understand what it is, where it even came from, and why it gets people so fired up on both sides. So let's get right into it.
So let's start with a number that is just impossible to ignore. 9,000%. And no, that's not a typo. That was a real gain for Bitcoin in one of its early surges. It's what turned this little-known digital project into a massive global phenomenon. It literally made some people fortunes overnight and left pretty much everyone else scratching their heads. So the question is, how on earth did we get here?
To even begin to understand a number like that, we first have to push aside all the hype and just figure out what we're actually talking about. What is cryptocurrency at its very core?
Okay, so in simple terms, cryptocurrency is basically digital money that's secured by really strong code. But here's the thing. The digital part isn't what's new. The money in your banking app is digital, right? The real game changer is that it exists on a computer network that isn't controlled by any single person or company or government. No central bank, no head office.
And that, right there, is the fundamental difference. The money you use every day, we call it fiat currency, is centralized. Your dollars, your rupees, your euros, they're all controlled by governments and banks. Their value depends entirely on you trusting those institutions. Cryptocurrency, on the other hand, is decentralized. There's no CEO to fire, no central bank to call the shots. Its value comes from cryptographic proof, spread across a huge network. It's a system designed to work without you having to trust any one person or group.
So you might be asking, why would anyone even want a currency with no bank or government behind it? Well, this idea didn't just appear out of thin air. It was actually born from a moment of massive global crisis.
I want you to picture the year 2008. The entire world's financial system is just on the verge of collapse. Huge, too big to fail banks like Lehman Brothers were going bankrupt, and people's trust in the whole system was completely shattered. It was right in the middle of all that chaos that some anonymous person, or maybe a group of people, using the name Satoshi Nakamoto, published a paper online. Then, just a few months later, the Bitcoin network came to life. That timing? It was no accident. It was a direct reaction.
This was the very first sentence of that paper. And really, it's the whole vision in a nutshell. The goal was to create digital cash that lets people pay each other directly, completely cutting out the middleman, cutting out the very financial institutions that so many people felt had just failed them. Bitcoin wasn't just a new piece of tech. It was built to be an alternative.
Okay, so a currency with no central authority is a fascinating idea, but how does that actually work? Who keeps track of all the money if there's no bank? The answer is this really clever invention called the blockchain. And honestly, the basic idea behind it is surprisingly simple. The easiest way to think about a blockchain is to imagine it's a shared digital notebook, or a ledger. Every single transaction that ever happens gets written down in this notebook. But here's the magic trick. A copy of this entire notebook is stored on thousands and thousands of computers all around the world. This makes it totally transparent. Anyone can look at it, and it makes it incredibly secure. Think about it. If someone tries to cheat and change a page in their copy of the notebook, it won't match the thousands of other copies, and the network will just reject it. Simple as that.
So what does this look like when you actually use it? Well, let's say you want to send 1 Bitcoin to a friend. First, your transaction gets broadcast to this huge global network. Then these really powerful computers called miners all race each other to solve a super complex math puzzle to verify that your transaction is legit. The first miner who solves it gets to bundle your transaction with a bunch of others into a new block and add it to the chain. And as a reward for all that work, they get paid in brand new Bitcoins. And that whole process, that's what we call mining.
Now that mining system I just described is called proof of work, and it's the original system that Bitcoin uses. But it has one massive drawback. It uses an incredible amount of electricity. Because of that, newer systems have been developed, like proof of stake, which is what the Ethereum network now uses. With this method, instead of miners competing, people called validators, who've locked up their own coins, are chosen to verify transactions. It's just a different way to get to the same end goal, keeping the network secure without needing a boss.
So here's where it gets interesting. Even though Satoshi's original idea was for digital cash, something you'd use to buy a coffee, cryptocurrency today is having a bit of an identity crisis. Are these things for spending or are they for saving?
The crypto market is absolutely massive.
There are thousands of different cryptocurrencies out there, which we call altcoins. But let's be clear, Bitcoin is still the king. It makes up more than half of the entire market's value. Because of that, and because there will only ever be a limited number of them, many people now treat it less like cash and more like digital gold, something you buy and hold on to, hoping its value goes up over time.
But that original digital cash idea is definitely not dead. In fact, there are some areas where crypto is way more efficient than the old system. Just look at international money transfers. If you want to send money across borders using a bank, it can take days and cost you a ton in fees. A Bitcoin transaction? It takes about 10 minutes. That speed and lower cost is a really big deal, and it makes crypto a powerful alternative for people and businesses who operate globally.
So we've covered the big vision, the tech, and how people are using it. But you can't have an honest conversation about crypto without looking at both sides of the coin, the incredible promise and the very, very real dangers. The promise is, without a doubt, powerful. We're talking about a new kind of financial system that's open to literally anyone with an internet connection, that's free from the control of any single entity, and that runs around the clock 24/7. And, of course, there's always that magnetic pull of potentially life-changing profits, like we saw at the very beginning.
But, and this is a huge but, the dangers are just as serious. The price swings are absolutely wild. The crypto world is, frankly, a minefield of scams and hacks. Its anonymous features can be used for illegal activities, and governments are still trying to figure out what the rules should be. Add to that the massive environmental concerns around Bitcoin mining, and what you have is an extremely high-risk arena.
And to make that risk a little more real, look at this number, $473 million. That's how much Bitcoin was stolen from an exchange called Mt. Gox way back in 2014. At the time, it was the biggest crypto exchange in the world, and when it went down, thousands of people lost everything. It's a brutal reminder that in this new world, if something goes wrong, there's usually no one you can call to get your money back.
And this skepticism doesn't just come from everyday investors. It comes from some of the biggest names in technology and business. When Bill Gates says this, he's talking about the greater fool theory, the idea that these assets have no real value on their own and that you only make money by selling them to someone else, the next fool, who's willing to pay even more.
And that really brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? Is cryptocurrency the future of finance, a technology that's going to completely reshape how we think about money, or is it all just one giant speculative bubble floating on pure hype and waiting to pop? For now, the only thing we know for sure is that this story is a long way from being over.